We also want to encourage not only just our members, but all. September is Back to Bible School month, and we have Bible classes on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. We're studying the Ephesians 4 congregation. Then on Sunday evenings, we're getting together and we're getting an understanding of what it means to walk in your new self, we've been looking at each particular old self, new self, and last week we looked at abandonment, which is now atonement, and of course tonight, I believe, I don't know, I'm not sure, I think it's either worthlessness, which will give your new self greatness, or either choose one of those that we're going to be looking at. But I know we're going to be looking at one of them. And so we need to come and be a part of that this evening. Come and be a part of that this evening. Remember, we spent more time in the old self than we have in the new self. In order to walk in the new self, you need to get an understanding of what that is and how it works so that you may be able to walk in it. We also get together on Wednesday evenings. We're studying through Daniel, the principles of Daniel. As a matter of fact, we're going to be using a scripture from Daniel this morning to introduce this lesson today. And so you may want to be turning to Daniel chapter 6 and verse number 10. Daniel chapter 6 and verse number 10 is where we're going to be studying. We're going to begin this lesson this morning. I have a lot to unpack, so I'm going to move slowly because we need this lesson. I need this lesson. And I hope that you'll be able to receive what the Lord gave me, the challenge that He has challenged me with through this particular lesson. Our core value of this month is new self-confidence. And for those of you who are not aware, we are looking at the core values of Jesus. And these core values are vital, they are necessary, they are important to our spiritual growth and our spiritual walk. This month, new self-confidence. New self-confidence. And how many of us can use a little confidence in our lives? I believe that we all can. We all can. But our lesson this morning is titled, Consistency with Persistence Create Confidence. Consistency with persistence create confidence. I'd like to begin by sharing a statement. Someone once told me that we are the sum total of our thoughts and we are the sum total of our thoughts and our habits. That means that if all of your thoughts are negative, you're going to be what? Negative. We are the sum total of our thoughts and our habits. That means that if our habits are corrupt, that means that we're going to be what? Corrupt. A person is determined by their thoughts and their habits. I'd like to go over to Daniel chapter 6 as we introduce this lesson this morning. In Daniel chapter 6, beginning in verse number 10, the background of that story is that Daniel is standing there in the midst of a challenge in his life. And he was challenged because of his custom or his habit. In Daniel chapter 6, before going to the lion's den, they had signed a decree, and Daniel knew that upon this signing, that his life was going to be in jeopardy. But in Daniel chapter 6, we find this. It says when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went home, and in his upper room, with his windows open toward Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees 3 times that day and prayed and gave thanks before his God. Here it is, as was his custom since early days, as was his habit for a long, long time, as was his custom. This custom was a stated habit. And then in Hebrews chapter 10 and verse number 23. Hebrews chapter 10 and verse number 23. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner or the habit or the cultivated habit of some. You get that? As is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. We are the sum total of our cultivated habits and thoughts. Hebrews says that here's an individual, as in the manner of some individual. There is a cultivated habit. You do this because you cultivated the habit, the custom. New self-confidence is vital. It is necessary for us to become an Ephesians 4 congregation. Because each and every member has the responsibility to, number one, be accountable. Number two, be responsible. The core value of this month says, the confidence I receive from repeating a skill, cultivating a habit over and over again until I master it, from patiently practicing my cognitive, my communicative, and my coordinated skills. I use what God has given me. I practice using those things, addressing those things in my life, and as a result, I gain a certain confidence because the proof is revealed in the power of God at work in my life. Too many Christians believe that the power of God is magic. Not so. Too many Christians believe that they have a mindset that I can't do a certain thing. When we look at Matthew chapter 5 and verse number 48, we hear the concept, or we hear the teaching, that be ye perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. And the next thing that the Christian will say is that it is impossible for a person to be perfect. Nobody can be perfect. Jesus is teaching something here that you and I need to pay close attention to. Because we have dumbed down the spiritual walk, and so as a result, nobody is accomplishing nothing. We look good on Sunday morning, but we live like hell raisers during the week. We do not apply the principles that God has called us to apply, simply because we've hid behind the concept of the false notion that we cannot be perfect. You see, like all of these core values that we'll study, we need these core values to maneuver through life. I know we have this mindset, and when we find individuals who do certain things, who operate from a certain base, we give them names or we titles. You know, they do this, they do that, and they got to have this straight. They got to have this. They drive me crazy. But let me say this to you: which would you prefer to have? Somebody who is moving toward perfection, or one who is careless? Think about it for just a minute. Each core value that we study, they come with certain expectations from a holy God. What has happened in the spiritual realm today is that no one wants to do what is necessary to grow. As we look at the concept that Jesus is teaching in Matthew chapter 5 and verse number 48, it says this: therefore you shall be perfect. That word perfect is complete. The word teleos means a certain level of growth and maturity that is expected in you as a child of God. It says, be ye perfect just as your Father in heaven is perfect. What father would ask his child to do something that he did not think was possible? You see, Christians are called to imitate our Heavenly Father. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse number 1. But what we've got to do is go back and get an understanding as to what that means. Because as you're striving for perfection, there's a certain level of confidence that comes with that. And because you do, and when Christians do not have that level of confidence, we find ourselves shrinking back from situations. We find ourselves being overcome and overwhelmed by the trials instead of understanding that there's a value in the trials. James tells us that when we persevere through the trials, when we overcome the trials, then we can be perfected. You see, trials have a reason. But if you and I do not understand that, we're going to always find ourselves on the sideline. So let's comprehend this confidence of perfection. This confidence of perfection. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't put it up there so you can see it. Okay, but you'll see it later. You'll see it on the screen later. But comprehending the confidence of perfection is important. You see, this comprehension means that we are growing in our mental and moral character. Let me give it to you again. We become the sum total of our thoughts. If you think spiritual thoughts, you're going to become what? Spiritual. If you think negative thoughts, you're going to become what? Negative. If you decide to live negative, you're going to become what? Negative. If you decide to live and aim for perfection, you're going to become what? You see, this concept that Jesus is teaching there in Matthew 5 and verse 48, you see, they embrace the truth. They recognize that this was a process where one has to grow. They have to grow in their mental and the moral character. And I hear it all the time, and individuals, Christians will say, I'm not ready for that yet. But if you're not ready for growth in your moral and spiritual character, then what are you ready for? You see, this completeness that he's talking about is as though one has become a full-aged man or woman. This is spiritual maturity on display. This is God's holiness and righteousness at work. Let's go over to 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse number 11, because he tells us that we are to aim for it. We are to aim for this perfection. And 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse number 11, if you would, get that for me, Brother Moses. Now I'm going to go over to James chapter 1 and verse number 4 to help us to understand this perfection. But in 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse number 11, Some translations uses the word perfection, and some uses the word complete, which is the definition of the word perfection. Give it to us. 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 11 says what?
Finally, brethren, farewell. Become complete.
Become complete. Now we can kind of let that work around our head, but the word there, he says, become perfect. Become perfect. Aim for it. Aim for it. Become perfect. Now, let me help you out here. Because see, when we take that word and we have something that is really sinister, to tell you the truth. Because we throw it out there and say nobody can be perfect. And what you're doing is that you're creating yourself a hole to fall into. What you're trying to do is to make your sin bed easy to lay in. You set yourself up for a trap. You say, I don't have to. But let's go for just a moment and look at what James says, because the same word is used in James chapter 1. In James chapter 1 in verse number 4. Look at this in verse, very interesting. Let's start in verse number 2. It says, but brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience, but let patience have its perfect work. Have its complete work. Why, James? But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be what? Perfect and what? Complete, lacking nothing. You say that in your Bible? We wrestle with it. And the more we wrestle against it, we lose a certain confidence. And then when some Christian walk by us, or they start executing their perfection that comes from God, we do everything we can to bring them down, don't we? The reason being is because we do not want to lie. How do we execute? How do we develop this perfection? Do you want to know? I'm glad you asked. This is how we do it. First and foremost, through practice. It's through practice. Just like any habit in your life, in my life, the way that habit became, it was through my practice. Whether it was good or bad, I began to practice a certain way. I began to create that situation by the way that I practiced. I had the privilege of going home, invited to our homecoming at our high school, which was the first to integrate in Central Florida. And when they introduced me, they said that he was the only one who's ever received this one particular award. And that award was, he's the first 2-year starter, but this one award that he received, that he was always 100% perfect. And you know what was interesting about that award was it was ingrained in me that if you're going to do a certain thing, you put your heart into it. You give it your best. You give it your all. But another thing that I liked too about that was you can practice. But if your practice is not perfect, then you will not be perfect. I don't play piano. I wish I could. I like to see individuals get there and do the practice and all of those things. But I've learned something that if you do not know what you're doing, and I don't care if you spend time every day banging on those keys, but if you do not understand how they work, but yet you practice every day, you'll never accomplish it. You see, you got to be able to do the right things the right way. And you got to continue to execute those things. This is part of the conditioning. Why do people neglect worship? Because they have conditioned themselves to do that. Why is it that Christians do not do what they need to do spiritually? Because they have conditioned themselves to do that. Why is it, talked about spiritual gifts this morning, why is it that Christians do not use their spiritual gifts or even take time to learn what those spiritual gifts are? They have conditioned themselves. Have you ever noticed that on your job, there are always individuals who've been there for a long period of time in certain places, and you wonder, why is it that they didn't move on? Why is it that they didn't expand to a point? They conditioned themselves to stay. They conditioned. Have you ever noticed that sometimes individuals get to a certain place and they stay there, they stay right there? They have conditioned themselves. In other words, they have grown comfortable in that habit. And anything beyond that, it becomes painful. It becomes challenging to them. But notice what James said. It is only when you go that extra mile, when you go beyond what's expected, is when you find yourself moving into what is called success. Okay. You see, we can look at these scriptures all day long. Matthew chapter 19:21. Jesus said to them, if you want to be perfect, go sell what you have, give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me. If you want to be perfect, come follow me, said Jesus. Come and be conditioned. Luke chapter 6 and verse number 40. He says, the disciple is not of his teacher, but everyone who is perfectly trained will be like his teacher. You see, conditioning, practice, executing. That's how we get it. And those are the things that give us the spirit. We had an experience this morning, and we both had to rely on our training in the past. We got our bundle of joy with us this weekend. And years ago, we were trained. We trained ourselves in working with young kids. And you know what you have to do? We know if we're going to work on Sunday morning, you know what we have to do? We have to get ready on what? Saturday. I said, wow, this brings back to me. We got to prepare ourselves. We got extra work to do. We got to get it together. We conditioned ourselves long ago to do that, what we need to do what? Now. Here's the point. When Christians do not grow in their confidence, they have conditioned themselves. In other words, let me put it another way. This may bite. This may bite. I'm going to tell you beforehand. When Christians lack self-confidence, new self-confidence, what has happened is that they have turned in on themselves. Because no matter what God gives them, no matter what they receive, they reject it. That's just like we're sitting here right now. Some of you are rejecting it. Right? Why? Because you have conditioned yourself to deflect, reject, deny. I just, that's all I have. Let's go to Luke chapter 11 today. Now, I mentioned earlier, I said, this is for me. I'm just sharing with you what the Lord said with me. Okay, is that all right? Okay? All right. All right. Now, if you want to break a piece off, you should. Okay? Luke chapter 11. I want you to read, begin at verse number 3. Verse number 3. Is that our text for today? Luke chapter 11. Luke chapter 11. Start at verse number 5, Brother Moses. And I want you to read down to verse number 8. And I want you to pay close attention to the individual and what's going on in that particular text. Verse 5 to verse 8.
And he said to them,
Which
of you shall have a friend, and go to him at midnight and say to him, Friend, lend me 3 loaves, for a friend of mine has come to me on his journey, and I have nothing to set before him. And he will answer from within and say, Do not trouble me. The door is now shut, and my children are with me in bed.
That's what he does.
I cannot rise and give to you. I say to you, though he would not rise and give to him because he is his friend, yet because of his persistence, he will rise.
Because of his what?
Persistence.
Because of his what?
Persistence.
Because of his what?
Persistence. He will rise.
He will rise.
And give him as many.
And give.
As many.
As many.
As he needs.
As he needs. The King James Version uses the word importunity. Those of you who are using the King James, importunity. That persistence brings forth a certain level of confidence. We have got to learn how to be persistent. And we've also got to learn how to be consistent in our persistence. These two things work together. But many times over, the first time something or some situation tell us no, we shut down. Why do we do that? Here it is. We have conditioned. We have cultivated the habit of faith. You are where you are because that's where you choose to be. Yeah. We see the example in Luke chapter 11. And not only does Jesus stop there, he moves on into the area of prayer. See that? How many of us find ourselves with this opportunity to pray or to do? And verse number 9, he says, So I say to you, ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks, receives. And he who seeks, finds. And to him who knocks, it will be open. And then he goes on to talk about the blessing. We've got to be consistent with our consistency. You see, importunity is what the scripture, what the word is, importunity. And the only way that we can fulfill the Father's desire is to use these concepts. You see, when there's importunity, that's that perseverance, that's that determination, that's being diligent with a purpose. You see, as that individual, he was doing that bread. He needed some help. He needed these particular things. But he needed them not for himself, but it was also for somebody else. He did what he needed to do to get what the Lord wanted. He was steadfast. You see, the proof or the result of perfection. You probably heard girl meets guy, guy meets girl, and he'll look it in her eyes and he'll say, "You complete me." Or she'll look back at him and she'll say, "You complete me." But I'm here to tell you that, even though, we know, or we have this mindset that they are not perfect, but they are perfect for me. They are the very person that I need in my life to be what? Complete. Teleos. Perfect. But what happens is that we look at something that is false other than good. You see, we've got to be complete. That divine perfection we can only come through our practice, cultivating the right hand. Paul tells us something unique over in Philippians 4 and verse number 8. Think on these things. Paul writes this text in verse number 8 in Philippians chapter 4. He says, "Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, and if there's any virtue, and if there's anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things." You gotta remember, we are the sum total of our what? Thought. And we're also the sum total. They define us. Our thoughts define us. Our habits define us. You see, it's not what we do once in a while that shapes our lives. It's what we do. It's what we do. Now, I know there are people who are consistently wrong. Now, the concept consistent can be done. It can be used positive and negative. I want you to know that. But we're striving for perfection, and so we want to operate or execute it in the what? The positive. If you're persistent, you're going to gain. We see that in scripture. If you're consistent, you're going to keep it. You see, this core value is vital. It's necessary for us as we grow and mature. Being consistent means that you never gave up because of it. Just like that man knocked on that door. He did not give up because you had to. See, success does not come from what you do. It's about what you do. Now remember, you can be consistently right, but I'd rather be consistent. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 58. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse number 58. If you would get that from the brother Moses. This is a fact. If you want to be taken seriously, be persistent and be consistent. Put those two together. If you want to be taken seriously, be persistent and be consistent. You see, being persistent is that determination. It is that steadfast. It is unmovable, all with a purpose. Look at what Paul said in 1 Corinthians 15 and verse number 58. You have it, Brother?
Yes. Therefore, my beloved brethren.
Therefore. What is that for? Read on.
My beloved brethren, be ye steadfast.
Be ye steadfast. Be you steadfast. Not somebody else. Be you.
Unmovable.
Be you in your steadfastness. Be unwilling to move away from your purpose. Read on.
Always abounding in the work.
No. Sometimes.
Always.
Come on, give me a break, man. Always what?
Abounding in the
always work. Abounding. Stop right there. Stop right there, because the word abounding means always growing. Always developing. Not just on Sunday. Not just on special days. But every day. This is how we cultivate, develop the perfection that God desires us to do. Remember, we have a sum total about that. Always abounding in what?
Always abounding in the work of the Lord.
In the work of the Lord.
Knowing that your labor is not in vain.
It's not in vain. Watch this. Watch this. Do you know that every place God asks us to do something, He always tied up neatly with a blessing? Have you ever noticed that about this? Always abounding in the work of the Lord, for you know that the labor is what now?
Knowing that your labor is not in vain in the
not
Lord.
In vain. Not in vain. He intends to bless. Remember I said earlier, it's that confidence and that consistency that allows us to do that. Into the question. What are your habits, thoughts, proving about it? Let me put it in that way. What's being manifested in your life as a result of your thoughts and your habits? Because that which is on the inside is going to always manifest itself on the outside. You may think that somebody else can't see it, but it's coming out. It's going to reveal itself. You can't hide this. We act in accordance with our custom. Did God speak to you? So what you going to do? If there's a call to repent, remember, we operate based on. And did you know that many Christians today can hear from God direct, hear a message from God that calls them to a place to repent, and because they have cultivated a habit of rejection, deflection, they put a little caveat, but that was a good lesson for the do getting in counsel. Let's dig in here just a little bit deeper. A busy operator. If he calls, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Reminds me of me and my mom. She told me one day, "Do you hear what I'm saying?" Yes, ma'am. She said, "Hold up. Did you hear what I just said?" Yes, ma'am. kept walking. She did it the third time. Did you hear what I just said? I stopped and yeah, I heard. And she said, what? And something came after that. You see, I wasn't listening. I wasn't hearing her. I just said that. I had cultivated a certain habit and operated, and she changed that quickly. So from then on, Mama said something. I heard it. I made the adjustment. I made the adjustment. I didn't like it, but I made the adjustment. Now that I'm older, I'm very thankful for that. You see, it's about the mature. It's about the growth. It's about the development. That's what perfection is. You'll be made complete by the awesomeness. Are you listening this morning? Are you listening? Did you hear that? Go ahead, sir. Y'all hear me? If you heard his voice, do not put it on. Repent. He needs you to be a part of your business. If you're outside of this fellowship this morning, we want to encourage you to come and be a part of this call. The Bible tells us what we need to do. The Bible tells us that we need to hear the Word of God, hear the gospel of Jesus Christ, and we need to believe it. The Bible tells us that we need to believe that Word. We need to repent. We need to turn away from our old ways and turn to the new way. You need to confess Christ before others, and you need to be baptized into Christ. You see, baptism places us into Christ. That's what the Scripture teaches. Mark 16:16, he who believes and is baptized shall be saved. He who believeth not shall be condemned. Are you listening? Are you listening? Maybe you don't understand that, and that's why we would be more than happy to sit down and help you to get an understanding of what pleases the Lord. That's what we're here for, is to teach you. We are a teaching congregation. We're not going to play with the soul. We're going to teach the soul and help you to be prepared. Dear friends, those of you who have obeyed the gospel, are you striving for perfection? If you're not striving for perfection, then what are you striving for? That's the question.